to.
No,
Please do.
You might hurt your hand.
Hello, everyone.
My hands are...
Welcome to Contentious Writers Drinking Delicious Coffee. This is a podcast based on writers sitting around, drinking, talking about writing, publishing, and the whole creative process. There is no censorship, so consider us PG-13. We have a full coffee house today. We have John Schmidt, Chaz and Karen Brenchley, David Welsh, and me, Jeannie Warner. This is episode 36, Systemic Magic. As you know, last week we interviewed Sandra Brenchley on the topic of divination, prognostication, and other interesting ways of telling the future in the past. Mm-hmm. And this brought me up to pondering how, in the way of world building, especially for fantasy, one should contemplate how exactly magic works in one's world. How do you bring something coherent? How do you make sense of it? Is your story wrapped around your magic system? Is your magic system a piece of your story? And if you don't really think about your magic system, what can go horribly, horribly wrong?
Well, the answer to that is always everything.
Always everything. But magic system in itself can be the basis of a story. Like... Mm-hmm. I really loved Steve Bruce's Dragira system, which actually came up from a gaming system that they invented when it was him playing with Cass Marshall and John Roby and a bunch of guys out in Minnesota. And they said, here's two different kinds of magic. And they had high sorcery, and they had really cool Eastern witchcraft. And
Eastern?
Eastern, for them, means non-elven magic. So okay. Human.
Okay.
Well,
yes, we are not talking East, West, Oriental, Occidental, anything else, Middle Eastern, Southern Eastern, Southeasterly. Purely not the elves.
Okay.
And that came from a gaming system, which was neat. But then you have like Devin Monk's Ordinary Magic system, which was really, I thought, kind of revolutionary because it was the idea of magic. All magic has a cost, a price, a sympathy. And you can sign a contract to have somebody else. For instance, if I could cast magic, death magic upon somebody and have Dave suffer for it through misery and physical pain, it could be worth something. So
proof that it doesn't exist.
Yes.
And one of the magic systems that I particularly like, and I am getting interested again, is Catherine Kerr's Dwemer. I'm pronouncing that wrong.
Dwemer, isn't it?
Dwemer.
Okay. Although Dwemer, I think, as she says, is
Dwemer
the common
is
tongue.
easy.
Yeah.
Dwemer is easy.
Just say Dwemer.
But anyway, her new Sword of Fire is coming out.
Yeah.
It has come out, so everyone buy a copy. But I like the way that it works in that it's like having red hair almost. You have Dwemer power or you don't. You must study it. It's like, being a
you don't have
swimmer.
to study having red hair.
Well,
no,
You totally do. You study brands.
It's like being a Jedi. You have midichlorians. You have to study, though.
No, actually it is more like the Jedi because you have to study. You have the magic ability, but to actually use it, you have to practice. It's like being a good runner or being a Jedi master.
It's a skill.
You have to practice.
But if you don't have the initial ability, then the practice is in vain.
Yeah, you're screwed.
So I'm going to throw a different point in here. You don't need to have an understandable magic system unless the magic system is specifically something fascinating. You just have to have within the bounds of the story making sense magical system. For instance, I'm going to pimp Ursula Vernon's recent books. And now my mind goes...
The Clock Tower?
No.
More recent.
A Very Minor Mage.
Oh, yeah.
And also the Nine Goblins story. And in the Nine Goblins story, mages are essentially people who are crazy. They have a power and it's an insanity. And the story does not need to explain how anything works, as long as you understand that to the goblins, to the elf veterinarian, to the characters in the story, they have an understanding of it that you can accept.
Did he just say elf veterinarian?
Yeah, he did actually say
I love the elf veterinarian. Yes. Ursula, genius, best character you wrote so far. It's my favorite.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I am happy not to have the inner workings of magic explained to me, so long as it is clear where the limits of magic lie. Magic needs boundaries. It needs things it can't do.
Right.
So you just kind of said an oxymoron to me. I don't need to have it. I don't need to know the rules as long as there are rules. So somewhere somebody has to figure out the rules, right?
No, I don't need to know how it works.
No,
I need to know where it can go and where it has to stop.
I'm totally with him. Anything, I mean, it's not just magic. Anything that doesn't have boundaries makes for a boring story.
Exactly.
Because you're talking about gods then.
Yeah, if there was
Deus
no
ex
reason why a wizard can't walk in and do whatevs,
Yeah.
Well, it's
unless you have boundaries.
It's like driving a car. Okay, I mean it really is. I know nothing about the inside of an engine, but I can put
Right.
the key in, turn the key, and I actually don't even have keys anymore. I have a Prius. I push a button, and the car starts, and it's magic. I mean, think about it, it's magic to me. If it breaks, I can't fix it.
Any sufficiently advanced technology
Exactly.
So,
is.
going back to examples of this, one you can cut magic up in so many different ways. I just have to say that as a writer who hasn't written anything magical yet, all I need to know is what my limits are, and those can develop organically in the story. Sometimes, like okay, there's an odd thought. Here's a question for you. Is magic equivalent to a character?
No. Well, maybe.
No.
It depends on what you're writing.
Magic has no independent action of its own.
Except when it does.
Except when it does. And when it does, I dislike it mostly intensely. There are... long and long ago, I read David Eddings, because hello.
Well,
And there are prophecies that have not exactly consciousness, but sentience. And I really disliked that even at the time.
I once had a sword, or should I say a sword once had me.
No, that's fine. A conscious sword, I don't mind. But that's a thing with a magical element. When the magic itself is conscious, again, it's like having a god in the place. You know, what's going to stop it?
Yeah. That's why the Q episodes of Star Trek
hate them.
are the most boring,
Yes.
contrived,
Yes.
idiotic episodes.
Yes.
Yes.
By the way, if you're listening to this and you wrote the Q episodes, we welcome your debate on the topic. Just
Input is
throwing
welcome,
it-
but you're
Right.
wrong.
I'm open to listening why you might be right.
But
Just consider, though, that it's
to
going
me,
to be a
this is
very
you guys
hard
are kind
sell.
of all going with my thing of you really do need to make decisions about it.
Right.
Now,
Yes.
you can make decisions as you go, but you sometimes have to go back and then make it consistent.
Yes.
And
No,
it's the
absolutely.
consistency that
Yeah, yeah.
matters. Like,
Yeah.
Well,
which can be, there's
Which is the same as anything else in world building, only there are fewer constraints to start with, so you have to do more work.
to a certain extent, I hold that this is why there are so many freaking Dragonlance books and D&D books and all of the gaming books because
the rules
the
were there.
system exists. I don't have to decide how the system works, so I can concentrate on how the characters work and how the system might go wrong or let somebody
I'm going
down.
to point out that I said this a couple of episodes ago. Once you've developed a world, you're invested in using it. You've done the hard work, and the rest is exploiting that work. So,
Makes me then wonder why there aren't more Ars Magica fiction books out there because best magic system ever.
But you're right about so D&D being the starter system. I mean, I bought the little cardboard box for basic D&D eons
with
ago.
the low impact dice.
But then you get and that hasn't really changed much. They got AD&D, but it really doesn't change much. What if you were complaining about midichlorians and so on? If you've got a story and a world and so on that spreads over time, okay, and or many books or many movies over decades, you're going to get some changes, and some are good, some are bad.
Are you going to get changes or just development? I mean, if you're contradicting what you said before,
or your new thing may be really stupid, but then you're stuck with it, midichlorians.
yeah.
But there's a reason sometimes that I have abandoned, this is an 8-book series and I haven't made it past book 1.5 because it's like a good magic system. It's like, oh, that's terribly clever. How interesting. I hadn't thought of that. How logical. But then you have to carry it off well because if they keep changing, I'll throw the book. Well,
Right.
literally throw a crust. I buy everything electronically anymore, but yeah.
That's what Kindle needs. It needs a way to throw the book.
Oh, that would be great. Okay, out there listening app makers, a little triple tap or three finger tap on it so that I can, with the sound of glass breaking at the end of it, and that means take it off my machine.
And an instant review at Amazon saying, I threw this electronic book
Exactly.
across the room.
And I especially encourage everybody to go out there and review books that they don't like, frankly, for the same reason that you should review the books you do like.
People review things they dislike intensely and things they like intensely. If they're in the middle, then nobody bothers.
Besides, I love reading 1-star reviews because it's like it wasn't what I expected, and therefore it's bad. It's like,
Well, some of them are like that, yeah.
And some of them are, it arrived in a broken package.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. What's that got to do with the product? Oh,
Nothing.
But you had things like, in the juxtaposition of gaming, that there's been also a bunch of books written through the White Wolf gaming system. White Wolf originally started out as a horrible, horrible gaming system, but they had really good writing and good art, and that carried them past crappy game mechanics, which they had to keep revising. But then you had Nightlife, which was a brilliant, breathtakingly simple, easy, one combination of magic, it's all mana series. But they had, their writing wasn't so good and their artwork was, high school, so it never flew.
I have to point out here that there's a difference between gaming and writing a novel with regard to magic systems.
Thank you.
And
I'm just
but there are parallels, but there is definitely an element in gaming of playability. Playability actually in gaming has to come first, and then the parsimony of the magic system can come second.
Yeah, whereas in fiction, credibility is what you're looking for.
Well, but you guys are all assuming novels, though. I'm even assuming short stories.
Yeah,
and writing.
I'm not saying anything about the form.
Any story too, we're talking about magic systems that work and give you things. Okay, you get to do things and magical, wonderful things happen. And remember, they all have to have limits too, and that's what I think makes the story interesting. Okay, yes, I have a magic sword. I can run around and do magic things. Wait, what's the downside?
Yeah.
Okay, what's
the cost?
It's the cost.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I think makes stories interesting. Is you find the magic, then you find the cost, or
that was what Carol Wells was saying about in general making any character. As high as you make the tower is how deep you need to make the well.
Carol Wolf.
Carol Wolf.
Sorry, Carol. Yeah. Carol Wolf. Because if you draw something up Superman, Superman is terribly dull as a character for me. I don't want to read about his exploits.
Unless there's kryptonite, which shows up fairly regularly.
Yeah.
I read kryptonite, but now we have to have, different colors of kryptonite because and on because that was so boring they had to keep making that new. He was too powerful.
Yeah. He was.
Can't make a 500-point character in a 250-point game.
Yeah.
But so I mean, there's some that I feel like you have to have that understanding, or you need to develop that understanding, and then you need to be able to go back and fix that understanding. Like, if I'm going to have magic, is magic the same for everyone? Is magic different for, if I have two races, is it follow the same rules for both of them? And somewhere that at least you need to think about it. Maybe you don't need to decide it all up front. But is the magic a god does from the same source as the magic your humans do? Well, if you have the old Greek times, all magic came from the gods, sort of. But are you writing
That's
Greek
a legit
myth?
take on a magic system.
Did humans do magic at all in the Greek legends?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. There's lots of magic, biblical magic.
There was drug-induced magic. There was soothsayers. There was
chthonic vapors for prophecy. But, and you're going to have to add the intersection of magic and society. Is magic legal? If it is legal, how is it policed? If it is not legal, how is it policed?
That brings another point up, which is, and you can, this is another spectrum, right? At one end, magic isn't really that connected to your world, but it's not that important in the story either. You can get away with just kind of sketching it out. If it's integrated into your world and you use it a lot, or it's very important, then it has to be consistent with the rest of the world, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can have two systems functioning, working against each other, which are not necessarily consistent with each other. And thus the world becomes the battleground between the two.
Right, but that's what makes it interesting.
Exactly.
I read a wonderful book by, I think his name is Patrick Rothfuss.
Rothfuss,
Yes.
yes.
The wind.
I think that's who wrote it. But it's about the high school students who are normal, and their life, and in the background are all the superhero high school kids, and it's their world, and they're like, oh, the auditorium blew up because they were fighting off the bad guys, but we're paying no attention to it. It was a wonderful book because it looked at that section of magic, or if you can consider superheroes or that kind of thing magic, which it really is.
Yeah.
That kind of world of magic because they were the normals, and I loved it. It was just beautifully done.
Okay, I don't think that's Patrick Rothfuss.
I don't think it's Patrick. It's by the guy who by the guy who wrote The Knife of Never Letting Go.
Oh, him.
Him.
We'll put it in the
We'll
liner
look it
notes.
up.
We'll look it up.
Yeah, but it's by the same writer. But it was just an amazing book.
Am I allowed to say that The Knife of Never Letting Go is one of my favourite titles?
Oh yeah,
That is a really good
It's
It's a
title.
lovely title. I've not yet read the book, but it's on my list just because title.
it's on the shelf, and I can point
How
to the shelf.
many people listening to this podcast or in this room are going to die someday when the to-read pile next to their bed collapses
falls
upon
over.
them and crushes them? Obviously not Jeannie, because she'll only
She-
get lightly bruised by a Kindle, but some of us...
Yeah.
No, but
Some of
that's
us.
the inverse of the new app that somebody even now is writing for Jeannie so that she can throw books across the room.
Yes.
Oh, we can
Is
throw
that
books at
all
Jeannie?
we can throw books at Jeannie.
Yay.
Yay.
I'm for that. No, so, I mean, there's pieces of it that I really liked that Sandra had to say in terms of the way mankind used to think about magic. Because once upon a time, you had magic was religion, was gods, was mathematics.
Well, it was
all in one.
Yeah, I mean, it's
And
myth. It's a way of explaining your universe when you really don't have a clue what's going on.
And they had interesting things, as just to revisit the ideas for those of you that weren't able to make it. She said, if you want to know about your future in anything, you look at something about your body. If you want to look at something that's going to bring you luck, maybe you look at the earth and around you and the land. And if you wanted to look for the future, you looked and wanted to know about natural events, you look to nature. And to tie in the idea of whatever kind of magic you're going to do, maybe it should have some sort of sympathetic intrinsic tie associated with it.
Did you know that mathematics actually is magic? Because that's what we use to predict things all the time. That's what data science is math being used to predict the future. I just wanted to throw that in.
Yeah, and in that same way, I could say that for those people who haven't read The Laundry and realize that Charlie Strauss is the prophet of our times, hey, Charlie, yes, that computational thaumaturgy is the whole basis of the Laundry files. And the elaborate, careful, I mean, Zelazny did it too in The Night of the Lonesome October. Do you remember how Night of the Lonesome October was told from the point of view of Jack the Ripper's dog, which alone makes it one of the greatest short stories ever written, because at the end of it, you are so cheering for Jack the Ripper because you really hope he wins. But one of you is doing the things and collecting somebody has to do the desperate calculations required to find out where the event is happening. And I dare not say more lest it be ruined, but it is definitely for some kinds, think of it for summoning magics, the stars must align to bring back the old ones, every kind of astronomy, and the basis of it is math. And
Well, magic is a reflection of forces beyond our ken, our knowing, so is math.
Well, to a lot of people, yeah.
hey,
Well, I don't... We could argue math all night.
We could.
math is
Good.
delicious.
Statistically
math.
speaking, some of us would like it and some of us would hate it. Let's have some more coffee, and continue talking about magic systems.
Red coffee is the best coffee.
Jasmine, that needs to be on a shirt.
Red coffee is the best coffee.
Thank you.
Yes. But yeah, to that end, it's what is the math of everything that is done, because even in the arcane systems, it's magic is energy, right? And so where is the energy come from? Is it stored? Is it pulling?
Don't need to know that.
You don't need to know that, but it's at least good to have it figured out.
Well, again,
It's probable that the author ought to know it, even if they never tell the reader.
Everybody who listens to this is an author, I'm sure of it.
Everyone. So I want to share something with you, just because 1 and 1 is always 2. Each alone, there's me, there's you. The mathematics of the heart adds together what's the part. The sum of being friends is done to prove that 1 and 1 means 1. See, math is magic.
No, math is poetry. That's all you've proved.
Poetry's magic.
2 plus 2 is 5 for sufficiently large values of 2. My grandpa taught me that.
Yes. I'm sorry.
And let's not talk about irrational numbers in Greek and Egyptian philosophy cults. Pythagoras.
Why did you bring that up then?
Because I don't want to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
I've
Just
sealed.
establishing the bounds.
Yes.
It's important to establish your boundary.
Exactly.
Well,
So
I was going to go ahead.
let's talk about a couple specific books that each of us. I'm going to say, if you like a certain style, well, the beauty of the gaming systems is they do have the established rules, and there's a lot of cultural leeway in them. But another beautiful thing is playing in someone else's universe. One of the glories of fan fiction is taking a left turn in Albuquerque and discovering if you have a nuclear weapon. Wait, what? But, what would happen with the priests of the White Rat if a god died?
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
You could go someplace with that.
Or, let's talk the ones you wrote as Ben McCallum, the Light Bringer. Words of Light. I'm forgetting the title. Help me out here. Light Errant.
Dead of Light and Light Errant. Not as Ben McCallum, about Ben McCallum.
About Ben McCallum.
What?
They're by Chaz Brinchley.
I read it when I was drunk. So,
Good Lord.
your magic
Red
system.
I wrote it when I was drunk.
That's why it made so much sense to me.
And one of them won a British Fantasy Award. So anyway, tell us about...
No, don't hush.
But that was a magic system.
It is a magic system. It is a magic system. But it's one of those stories where the point is that our hero doesn't work within the system, because all his family does magic except him, and they all do magic in the absence of light, and he does it the other way around.
Magic is who you are
but
in the dark.
as you were just saying, that you have it in your head as the author why that is the case and why it works.
Yes.
Right. So it's consistent.
It's totally consistent. It's beautifully consistent. Consistency is the jewel on which I build.
Mm-hmm.
The beautiful way that you emphasize that is exactly what we've been saying, is the guy who wrote it, has got to know the thing.
It's that whole thing about the swans sailing serenely over the water and paddling like hell underneath. And the iceberg being... This is how fiction works, is that the author puts in the work that doesn't show.
Right.
I wrote a short story once for which I had to join a private library and spend 2 weeks researching Elizabethan printing techniques in order to write a 5,000-word short story. It was commercially not a sensible choice, but it made a good story, and I learned a lot.
Theo was a printer's devil.
Exactly.
And you had to join the private library.
And I got to join the private library, which just ate me for the next 20 years. But hey.
Was there a restricted Maleficium section? You can tell us. Blink twice.
I can tell you that down in the silence room where I worked, there at least half the books were tied shut with white ribbons. And I'm fairly sure there had been chanting.
All right. So, here's a quick one. Let's go around. John, what's your favorite magic system from a book?
Oh, that's too easy for... All right, so a fiction book and a magic system within it, or a commercially available role-playing
You interpret the question. Move along. Let's go. Come on.
Either one.
I'm going to give you both. My favorite magic system, as of right this second until I have some more red coffee, is what Alice Rasmussen used with elegance in The Labyrinth Gate.
Kate Elliott for those.
Yeah, different nom de plume. But that
No,
isn't
it's the same. It's all Kate Elliott.
different nom de plume.
Yeah.
So,
Well, if you want to buy it, it's by Kate Elliott.
no, if you want to buy it,
It's in the
by
notes.
Alice Rasmussen.
I
So
okay?
it's not a Kate Elliott book.
Yes,
that was
that's
the
what I'm
question that I asked.
Yes.
No, that was the assertion you made.
No, I
Wonderful
said
system based on tarot cards and Regency magic.
Yes.
As a magic system that drew me in and made me read stories and think about things differently, Greg Stafford created a whole world in his brain and would let you into it.
Yep.
The system was called RuneQuest, but really it is Glorantha.
Yeah.
Next.
Yep. Next, Karen.
Now go to Chaz.
Chaz, favorite one you ever read?
Okay. Thingamabobber, what's the name? The Riddle Master of Head.
Oh, Patricia McKillip's?
McKillop.
Patricia McKillip.
I love
Oh, genius stuff.
the riddles, that whole and the great shout.
A wise man inflexibly pursues a riddle like a miser reaches a coin rolling across the floor.
Is that a quote?
I'm afraid so.
That's awesome. I couldn't have done that. But yes, no, I love the Riddle Master of Head with a passion that is almost unworthy of me.
No, it's a
because now I need
beautiful
to go
magic
reread
system. Yeah. Dave?
I'm going to, well, let's see. There are a number of good magic systems in gaming, which I'm going to completely just ignore, and I'm going to say that my favorite magic system, just for pure entertainment value, is the technology in Star Wars.
Fair enough.
Okay.
No,
Fair
I'm
enough.
going with I'm heading to technology too, which is why I paused.
My thesis here is that, Arthur C. Clarke aside, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. But at a certain point in cinema or in fiction, the technology ceases to be explained and is just there. You have faster than light ships that, act like Priuses and take you wherever you need to go, even though they be solar systems, in disparate galaxies, whatever. That's magic.
Yeah.
That's like
can't-
horses.
Yeah.
Horses you can just jump on and they ride from here to there, and there
Right,
you are.
right.
It's a transport system.
Right.
Well, and because what I was going to say is my favorite writer when I was early on was Andre Norton, and she wrote both fantasy and science fiction, but you couldn't necessarily tell the difference because of how she did it. You were just you were in an Andre Norton world, and you just ran with it, and she was great. I mean, I loved her books.
Mine was similar, and I'm torn between two. And the first one was I thought were fantasy, were the Song of Maven Many Shaped, the Flight of Maven Many Shaped, the Search of
Sherry
Tepper. And then the True Games trilogy came after that, and then the trilogy of Jenny and Footseer.
Other way round. Yes.
Chronologically speaking, Maven is the mom.
But publishingly speaking.
I didn't pay for her to publish it, so I'm just telling you the order I have to read it in.
Okay.
Read Maven first. Read the True Games second.
No. True Games first. And then you go back to
because
Maven.
that's one of those that you think you think you're reading a fantasy, 3 fantasy trilogies, and it turns out absolutely no, they're science fiction. And she was brilliant at that. And the second one of straight pure magic, I was going to say, is the Amber series by Lassie.
Yeah.
I did like that, yep.
First of all, just because I want the tarot deck where I can look it up, pull it up. It's sort of like when you think about it, your phone with FaceTime is the way that you used to have somebody's, I'm going to touch the mage. Okay, that's going to get me Karen. Hey, Karen, how you doing? And if I could just touch her hand through my phone and then suddenly be with her, be freaking awesome.
Yep.
And then you could throw the books that were on your phone into the wall.
Through the portal.
Through the portal.
Right.
Yeah, the magic in Victoria
There is an
Goddess.
entire subgenre
Blackbird Fool.
of magic that turns out to be technology, right?
Yeah.
Alien technology
Yeah.
or ancient technology that's being uncovered or
Yeah.
or whatever.
I love those.
By the way, that's not what I'm talking about with Star Wars. It's just pure magic. Nobody ever tries to explain it.
Midi-chlorians.
Well, and any
Midichlorians were like somebody from
attempt to explain it is doomed to failure.
Scientology
As-
funded them and said, hey, we have thetans. No, they're
as
midichlorians.
George Lucas proved himself. Anyway, moving right along. Whose turn is it?
That's it.
I think
that's
it,
We've
yeah.
all said our first
We've
guess.
all spoken.
Yeah.
We could all send another 100 more, but I would be interested if anyone listening to this wants to point me, because Chaz brought up a book I really want to reread, and now Jeannie has a series that I must get my hands on.
All right. Well, we will put links to all of these stories and the interesting things we talked about on our website, which is www.writersdrinkingcoffee.com.
Writersdrinkingcoffee.com.
Not red coffee.
Coffee.
Less red coffee. You can also find us on Facebook or Twitter. We live for email and discussions. You've been listening to Writers Drinking Coffee, a labor of love and enthusiasm put together by the host. Our main web support magic is brought to you by Deirdre McGaffey-Schween, and our sound engineer and backup web spider is David Welsh. Our intro music is Pretty Maid Milking a Cow, and our exit music is Breakfast with a Morning Person, both by Michael Engberg. You'll hear more from Michael Engberg on manyhatsmusic.com. Our podcast sponsor today seems to be Menage a Trois California Red Wine.
Red coffee.
Red
Not
coffee.
for the first time.